Oh, that's right. Support for cracking down on price gouging. Support 82%, oppose 13%. The number keeps going higher. The support number keeps going higher. Maybe if Republicans scream communism 7 more times and call Tim Walz a mouse again, they can drive this number down to 79%. Except... I'll show you these numbers now. In 2008, it reached its peak at 44.3%. In 2012, it went down because Obama in 2012 obviously was running a way different campaign. In 2016, it went up by a little bit, 39.4%, and in 2020, it skyrocketed to 48%, reaching its peak once again. Having said that, however, 2020 obviously was the COVID year, and also voting was made less difficult for obvious reasons due to COVID. So 2020 is not an actual, unless you are talking about like voter participation increasing when you make voting easier, 2020 is not exactly representative of anything else. Old people vote so they get treats. We don't vote as much, so no politician is bidding for our votes. You're wrong. The reason why I'm talking about this is because Barack Obama did appeal to younger voters, okay? And when you do actually have a more progressive campaign, you do actually turn out younger voters. That's my point. And if Kamala Harris needs to, if COVID is still here, okay, I know COVID is still here. I'm not saying COVID is gone, but lockdowns are no longer here, and there are no additional, like all of the like universal mail-in ballot and registration amenities went away. Okay, that's kind of funny because I know a ton of young people who quite literally vote just so they can post a pic of the little sticker you can get. My point is, we have never really had, with the exception of 2020, we've never really had like an actual overtly progressive campaign that singles out younger voters. But when you do that, you clearly, demonstrably end up turning them out at higher percentages. When you actually end up turning them out in higher percentages, you win. You also, in 2008 in Barack Obama, the 2008 Barack Obama Hope and Change campaign is a pretty solid example that you don't actually lose on other demographics when you actually have a bold progressive agenda. Okay? Do you get it? Kamala Harris, on the other hand, is currently relying on Brad Summer to carry her across the finish line. It's not going to work. Look at how your chat reacts to COVID being brought up like COVID still existing is lived for sake. Oh my God, dude. Please stop. Please. I beg you. Okay? Please stop. I'm not saying COVID doesn't exist. It very much still exists. Please. You're looking at one of the only communities remaining on the planet that isn't directly just about COVID still existing and talking just about COVID, that recognizes that COVID is still very much at play. I am not going to have a COVID discourse right now in the midst of this, okay? Literally changing the topic because he can't defend himself. Who? Oh, the chatter? Because I'm not. I'm trying to. You've signaled the wolves. Be careful. I know. It's hyperfixation. That's what it is for the most part. It's a hyperfixation, and it's no different than people being like, well, you're not talking about my issue right now, so you must deny that it exists at all. Okay? You're not sufficiently covering my personal thing that I want you to talk about when you're in the midst of making an argument about something entirely different. And now I'm going to make inferences about that and assume that you're, not with it. Okay. You underestimate how cynical Obama made the younger generations, though? Okay, we're not, first of all, cynical Obama made the younger generations. Brother, I hate to do this, but we ain't the younger generation no more, okay? People who were alive and coherent during the Obama admin, both before and after, people who were cognizant of the Obama administration and like had enough sentience to develop attitudes, we're not necessarily young any longer. We're not in the all voters 18 to 29 demographic at this point. Now, I mean, I totally understand being upset with Dems over Palestine, but don't act like all these things are a detriment to her. She's running a pretty normal campaign. Dude, what are you talking about? Chatter, please listen to my words when I say this to you, okay? This is the exact same style of campaign that Democrats have run every single election cycle. Some, depending on how bad the Republican Party is perceived, has delivered victories. Depending on how normal or outside of the box the Republican Party has perceived them or presented themselves as, like in 2016, they have lost. Okay? That is what's going on here as well. This is not a normal, it's normal for the Democrats. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a good way to campaign. Okay? It's actually the abnormal that the Democratic Party did that actually created a lot of enthusiasm for the Democratic ticket out of nowhere. And instead of leaning into that momentum and the enthusiasm, Kamala Harris turned around and did the exact same old strategy. That's the problem. I think you're nitpicking, man. Totally understand not wanting to vote Dems over Palestine. Just be 10 toes down about it. I think you and others who have this kind of attitude that you have in a Twitch streamers chat where I very openly tell you exactly what I think are looking for a cynical reason. You think I'm sheltering my secret perspective here when I am so honest, so brutally honest usually, that I say that pisses people off all the time. Okay? It is so that you think that I have some cynical purpose where I'm actually couching my criticism of the Kamala Harris campaign, even though my actual criticisms simply are on Palestine. Okay? No, that is something that I have a moral issue with. And it's also something that I have an issue with in terms of the electoral calculus here as well. But beyond the issue of and the ongoing facilitation of, I'm talking about domestic policies. Okay? If you personally legitimately think that presenting a campaign, presenting economic policies in your campaign that is like, oh, we're going to give tax credits, like tax cuts to small businesses in key sectors, and that's really going to move the needle for a lot of people, you are just as delusional as every other Democrat. The issue here, however, is that you're not being paid by the Democratic Party. I agree with you, says Colonel Disappoint Man. Yeah. Hasan, who has said America deserved 9/11, is actually not being honest here. He just has like a secret purpose to hide his opinion, even though he talks about Palestine pretty much every day and how upset he is on that front as well. I must be cynically hiding my actual opinions. Why would I do that? Search within your own mind. Try to think like, what are the reasons why I would do that? Okay? What is it? What could be the reasons? Am I being honest with you? Or am I secretly sheltering the truth, even though I do talk about all the other stuff that that you think I'm not talking about somehow? The worst part is you've been positive to the Kamala campaign when they deserve it, like the labor speech is an example. Yeah. He answered, by the way. No, it's not showing up. I don't know why. It's funny how you were riding for Biden during the pandemic because it actually affected you. Now that you're not actually affected by a second Trump term, you're bailing. He appealed to everyone. My state went blue. The last time this happened was FDR. I was riding for Biden during the pandemic because it actually affected me. A second Trump term doesn't affect me, so I'm bailing. If liberalism sucks, why do you live where it has the most impact on any state? Bro called Schumer a Palestinian man. What's up with these Asmongold ass takes? This is just a liberal chatter who thinks I'm cynically and secretly actually criticizing the Kamala Harris campaign, not because I think that making bold policy declarations would be genuinely positive for her in terms of her electoral calculus, but I'm actually personally a secret operative who is in the tank for Donald Trump. Liberals have one speed, dude. They cannot imagine a world where like I could personally demand more from the Democratic Party, which is the only other option out there in our duopoly. Okay? Why is it that you always ascribe bad faith to others? Perhaps it's because you're in here with bad faith in mind. This is the type of that makes the alt-right pipeline very comfy to people that literally don't want to hear this. So you're admitting you're a liberal, labor, arista, KKK rat who 24/7 discusses the potential domestic policies of the evil who's literally doing a Holocaust right now and promises Holocaust will continue no matter what. Yes, that's what I am. I'm riding with Kamala Harris. How do you develop this kind of attitude and this kind of loyalty for the Democrats? Mainlining MSNBC, is that what it is? He's not responding, moving on. I know. He got called out, so now he's just like, yeah, Edinger Mentum also said this.
I was a jit, but before opening film.
how I feel criticizing nearly every decision made by the Kamala campaign is the walls pick and carrying the entire team of morons, calling her entire team of team morons while also thinking that she's basically fine.
I had to go to get rich. Mama was struggling paying the rent. I couldn't help it with. Hey, then I'm feeling so.
This is my analysis as well, by the way. Like, straight up. Like, fear not liberals. Fear not libtards. You know, Kamala Harris is still likely going to win. No, she is fine. I think she is. They're doing a millionaire socialist thing from the left, probably a hardcore PSL voter or something. No, the first chatter that I called out was a hardcore libtard. The second chatter came in and was like, you're a labor aristocrat, but they were memeing most likely. Nobody unironically says labor aristocrat. Is she likely going to win? It seems 50-50 still. I think Kamala Harris is, all things considered. They weren't memeing. Wait, they were being for real? Oh, that's awesome. Wait, I hope you didn't ban that guy. The one that used Maoist standard English in the chat, unironically. Wait, what the? Why did he get suspended? No, it wasn't Schmo. You might think that you're not, but that's what you are. Oh, dude, he is actually like this. For chatters who also say, Hasan, why don't you deal with guys like this and talk about liberals? There are millions of people who have the attitude that that one liberal had that I'm addressing. And there's like some collective total of like 13 people who have this attitude. So it's not necessarily worthwhile to discuss or talk about. Their heart's in the right place, ultimately. Okay? That's the other reason. Like, they're both idiots. One means well. The other one is actually... Wait, what the... He did get clapped. No. You guys are writing the wrong username. I don't think it's him. Yeah, no, it's... This is the right username, and he's not clapped from Twitter. Why would he get banned from Twitch? He didn't say anything crazy. Anyway, as long as she's regularly finding leads in Georgia, a state with reliable polls that she doesn't even need to win, I'm not going to be losing sleep over her odds anytime soon. I appreciate the discourse, though, because I get to take shots at popularists. Anyways, people learn, then they hate you for not being left enough, then they understand your position. It takes like 3-ish years. Yeah. If I were a rich Democratic donor and wanted to maximize Kamala's chance of winning, I'd pay $10 million of bounty to lure ex-Biden staffers away from the campaign and replace them with fresher, better people. Give them a nice job consulting on the Luxembourg parliamentary election, etc. Yeah. This is one of the very few instances where like me and Nate Silver actually align on that, like Kamala Harris's Joe Biden dead ender staffers are leading her leading her astray. They're leading her down a unnecessarily close election. There's no reason for it. It's just so. Nate also personally thinks Trump is going to win because Kamala seemingly has no strategy for Pennsylvania. The only like, in terms of liberals' chances, in terms of the Democratic Party's chances, the only thing I can foresee that would be a massive upset, the only thing I can foresee that could potentially lead to a massive upset, okay, would be if, one, the October surprise of like Benjamin Netanyahu invading Lebanon, and then drawing America into direct battle, and B, Donald Trump personally being able to activate a lot of these like non-voters in key states that are not getting polled right now, okay? Because why the should they ever get polled? There's no way to reach them. And he did do this in 2016. That's why he caused the upset. So that's something to also consider. That's not happening. There's no way Trump wins again. We'll see. I don't think so, which is precisely the reason why I'm saying personally that when the race is so goddamn close right now, and Donald Trump does have a tendency to outperform the polls, when Joe Biden's lead was great in 2020, turns out that lead was not so great at the end result of the election. And 2016, Donald Trump won. Obviously, Hillary Clinton had a much larger lead. 2020 polls were obviously not as bad as the 2016 polls. However, Donald Trump did actually outperform the polls in 2020 in key states as well. So that's something to that's certainly something to consider in this situation as well. It's a massive problem, especially when you are considering an election that is currently super tight. My point is, it shouldn't have to be super tight. There is no reason for the polls to be tight. On the other hand, here's something very funny. One of the only things that Kamala Harris has come out with that has been broadly perceived as very popular policy. Are you ready? One of the only things that Kamala Harris has come out with that I personally liked and even hyped up was her declaration that she will go after price gougers in terms of in the grocery stores. Okay, let's take a look, dude. Oh, that's right. Support for cracking down on price gouging. Support 82%, oppose 13%. The number keeps going higher. The support number keeps going higher. Maybe if Republicans scream communism 7 more times and call Tim Walz a mouse again, they can drive this number down to 79%. Except the number used to be 79%, and that's precisely what the Republicans have been doing, and it only went up. That's crazy, man. It seems so strange to me that we have deluded ourselves, and Republicans do legitimately believe this, by the way. This is not a joke. Republicans and liberals both absolutely believe in their hearts, that progressive policies are scary. Okay? They do. They literally believe it. It's wrong. It is objectively incorrect. But they actually believe it. That's why so many Republicans were like, oh, Tim Walz seems like a massive L. Remember, they kept saying that over and over again. Once Tim Walz was announced as the VP candidate, Donald Trump and so many other Republicans, Fox News, across the board were like, Tim Walz, oh, you just lost the race. You just done lost the race, ass. Hold this L. And I told you at the time, they're coping. Okay? They're wrong. They're both wrong, and they're coping. Turns out, I was right and they were wrong. On messaging, I asked a local guy why they're not running on policy and what we can do to help people. He said, because it's Labor Day and NFL just started, normal people don't care yet. They will care in the few weeks once sports and schools settle down. Right now, it's sign up to help and register voters time. Later is why you should why you should vote time. Then he made fun of me for being terminally online. Yeah, that person is wrong and an idiot and will be responsible for why the Democratic Party loses your state. Okay? If they don't switch up. There are 60 days remaining on this election. The fact that you don't have actual policies as to why you should go out and even register to fucking vote, it's so unimaginably, oh my God. It is so, okay? They believe the label of progressive is scary. If you stick these morons in a room and sell them on the policy without some Fox News anchor telling them that cheap food is woke and gay, they'll probably support it. Dude, this demonstrates that even when you call it progressive and communist and Maoist and Vuvuzela, people still support it. Okay? Talking about price gouging, like angling it as though you are going to tackle price gouging is the perfect way to message it to the American population too. Huh. Brett Stevens is a good barometer on lib economics. Kamala Harris takes her first big risk. I don't want to read Brett Stevens. Brett, we've spent a long time agreeing about stuff thanks to our shared loathing of Donald Trump, but now we're back to our great divide, economics. No better way to end living an August afternoon than to summon the ghost of Richard Milhouse Nixon, probably not your favorite president. You're talking about a piece of Kamala Harris's big economic speech on Friday. Well, I admit price controls will be a tough plan to get through, politically speaking. But Harris is still trying to lay some of the groundwork for her overall agenda, which on the fiscal side includes redistributing some of the mega wealth to the upper class of folks who are struggling to reach the middle. I do like that scenario. Okay, I can't read this. I don't want to read this. This is going to piss me off for no reason. My Libber's dad says it's anti-progressive about the new immigration right to push from the Dems, like we need to appease first to have an honest discussion. Yeah, it's liberals are the ones who actually end up falling in line. They say Republicans fall in line, liberals fall in love. But it's actually the opposite. I heard a Republican unironically talk as though they are a goddamn RNC wonk or paid by the Republican Party in the same way that like active liberals who are politically active and very online, the way that those liberals talk about politics is like, bro, you act like you are working for the campaign. You act like you're defending the bad decisions that you made. You don't even have a paycheck from the Democratic Party. No amount of evidence that proves I'm right will ever be enough for these people, by the way. I'm just letting you know. They are just blue. They're blue and on through and through. Okay? And that's precisely why you see so many of the people that are critical of me on Twitter. If you key search Joe Biden, they were Biden dead enders. Okay? It's the same cultist attitude, bro. That's it. So many of these were also chirping about riding with Biden till the very end.
And no interest loans to small businesses that want to expand.
Here in New York today, Trump will address the city's economic club as he looks to bolster his standing among business leaders. As for that debate next week, last night, the Harris campaign agreed that mics will remain muted when a candidate isn't speaking.
Okay, Bob, other news yesterday, Harris picked up an endorsement from a former Congresswoman, Liz Cheney, a vocal Republican critic of Donald Trump. Here's what Liz Cheney...
Like, this is so perfect, dude. This is so perfect. Like, oh, man, Liz Cheney. Wow, we got John McCain's son and Liz Cheney endorse Kamala Harris. Oh, wow. That's really going to change the outcome of this election. Oh, hell yeah. Wow. Goated. That's sick. Who the f does Liz Cheney represent, dude? Who? Are you stupid?
Cheney had to say at Duke University.
Because of the danger that Donald Trump poses, not only am I not voting for Donald Trump, but I will be voting for Kamala Harris in this election.
All right, she got some applause there. Does it mean anything as an endorsement?
It's pretty significant. This election, of course, is about the economy, maybe now about gun violence as well, but it is about character for many traditional Republicans out there in the suburbs of Atlanta, in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and elsewhere. And the Harris campaign believes they can make some inroads with that constituency.
Yeah.
It's so hard for me to focus on anything other than this shooting.
Me too.
I have to
My
say,
head
guys,
is
it's just very difficult for me right now. It's hard for me to accept the fact that we live in a country where I guess we think it's okay to kill children. Because if we didn't think it was okay, something would be done to stop it. It doesn't seem to matter who's in office, how it works.
A long time ago. We would find a compromise that enshrines the Second Amendment but keeps our children safe. We shouldn't be sending them to school only for them to go home to God during the school day. Teddy goes to school today. It's the only thing on my mind.
I know.
We got 5 minutes into the school year.
Yes.
And this is what happens.
And I don't want to take guns from responsible gun owners.
If Harris loses, get ready for members of the media to suddenly insist she lost because Biden wasn't on the ticket. No, they're not going to say that. Everybody loves riding with Harris now. They're going to say it was the uncommitted campaign. They are going to say some of the most Islamophobic things you've ever heard in your entire damn life. They are probably going to be begging for Donald Trump to do mass Muslim deportations. No, they already are saying it. They literally keep saying, have fun when Trump deports your ass. That's what they're going to say.
It's not about that. But what we're doing now ain't working.
Yeah. Congress is just so divided, Gail.
Yes, I know, Bob. I know. It's hard.
Bob, thank you very much.
Lovely experience. It was years ago that I was here. We talked about what we were going to do, and we did just about everything we said. And if you'd like, we'll take a few questions, Bob.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Trump.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're now moving, as promised, to the question and answer portion of the program. Our four very able questioners today are H. Rajan Cohen, the senior chair of Sullivan and Cromwell, Sandra Gerber, founding and managing partner, CEO and CIO of Hudson.
These are the real voters, you know what I'm saying? These are the most important constituencies right here, baby. The Economic Club of New York, me.
Bay Capital.
I gotta pee.
Mr. John Paulson, founder of Paulson and Company, and Rashma Sanjani, founder and CEO of Girls Who Code. And
real America, you know? Real America. Love that populist sentiment coming out of the real Americans that we need to hear from.
Moms first. We're going to go in alphabetical order, and therefore, Raj, you have the first question.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I would like to ask about the United States economic sanctions programs. These programs have been used, as you well know, to advance our national security interests, our foreign policy objectives, but they also have economic implications. And the most recent was the program against Russia in response to their invasion of Ukraine, where for once we got the support of all our allies. So my specific question is, would you strengthen or modify any of these economic sanctions programs, particularly Russia, including the pipeline you mentioned?
Well, it's a great question. The problem with what we have with sanctions, and I was a user of sanctions, but I'd put them on and take them off as quickly as possible because ultimately it's your dollar and everything the dollar represents, and we have to continue to have that be the world currency. I think it's important. I think it would be losing. If we lost the dollar as the world currency, I think that would be the equivalent of losing. That would make us a third world country, and we can't let it happen. So I use sanctions very powerfully against countries that deserve it, and then I take them off. Because look, you're losing Iran, you're losing Russia, China is out there trying to get their currency to be the dominant currency, as you know better than anybody. All of these things are happening. You're losing so many countries because there's so much conflict with all of these countries that you're going to lose that, and we can't lose that. So I want to use sanctions as little as possible. One of the things that we have with tariffs is that I'll say to them, you don't honor the dollar as your world currency. Is that right? You're not going to do it? No, we're not. I said, that's okay. I'm going to put tariffs all over your product. And they're going to say, sir, we'd love to honor the dollar as the world currency. You know, tariffs, in addition to monetary and the money that we'll take in, which will be bigger than you've ever seen in this country before, gives you tremendous political power for something like that, as an example. I stopped with the threat of tariffs. I stopped with two countries that mattered a lot. A lot of people would have been. And I threatened tariffs coming into the United States if they don't make peace. And we made a lot of, we didn't have conflicts like you have right now. We had very intelligent people. But the biggest threat you have.
If he's talking about Russia and China, then you know what's even crazier than tariffs? Sanctions, which he used quite a bit. And the irony, of course, is that the sanctions regime that Joe Biden has continued from the Trump administration, which greatly increased sanctions, has not stopped Russia from pummeling Ukraine. So, nah, sanctions are even crazier than tariffs overall. He said he hates sanctions. Yeah, that's, by the way, he loves sanctions. What do you mean? He cooked Venezuela with the sanctions. He was the sanctions chief, dude. Look at Venezuela. Why do you think there's so many Venezuelans coming into the United States of America? Where'd they come from? Why are they escaping Venezuela? He absolutely loves sanctions and used the out of them. You missed the question. The guy's mad about sanctions hurting his dollar. I mean, I get why some people at the Economic Club of New York might be upset about it.
As you lose that currency, and we have lost something that you'll never get back, and we can keep it if we're smart, but they use it too much, and then they just forget about it. And these countries like Russia, it's going out now and doing its own thing, and you know, they're going out bragging about how they don't need us anymore, et cetera, et cetera. The sad part about Russia is that Ukraine would have never happened if I was president, so we wouldn't really have to be talking about sanctions. But it did happen. And one of the things I'm going to do, a little bit relevant to your question, is if we win, I believe I can settle that while I'm president-elect. Before I ever get into office, I can get that settled and get that stopped, because it's a horrible, horrible, and far more people in Ukraine, far more people than you're realizing. They'll knock down this massive building, amazing, the size of these buildings, they'll knock it down. They'll say nobody was injured. No, a lot of people were. The real numbers are far greater than what people are looking at. So I think it's a very important thing. Sanctions have to be used very judiciously, and you can win. We have things much more powerful, actually, than sanctions. We have trade, but we cannot lose our dollar standard. Very important. Thank you very much.
Great. Sander?
Thank you, Mr. President, for all the details on your economic policy. As you alluded to, tariffs are the other side of sanctions. And given that China is our major trading partner with our largest imbalance and possibly our chief national security threat to the United States, how can we better institutionalize trade policy and national security policy to be coordinated?
So I had a great relationship with President Xi of China, really very close relationship. Now look, he likes China, I like us, so, but I don't want to sound foolish. He was my dear, dear friend. He's a tough guy, he's a fierce person. I say very smart. You know, when you say he's smart, the fake news goes crazy. He said President Xi is smart. And I say, yeah, well, he controls 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. He's smart. But we had a very good relationship with China until COVID. And when that came in, it was...
The assessment that you sent me literally fucking ends in 2016, chatter. The graph of sanctions usage, look, the chart that you sent me, the global sanctions database, straight up ends in 2016, which is funny because it's like, that's kind of the whole, like I was trying to make a point about how much more Donald Trump accelerated sanctions. The Washington Post one covers it quite extensively. Yeah, the Jeff Stein piece on sanctions is pretty good. Trump loves Xi, unlike you. Isn't it better for America to compete more directly with its larger rivals? Competition makes everyone better. Wait, what? I mean, sanctions are not that. I don't know why you're bringing that up now. Let's see. Of course, then you got Biden, but you know, you got Trump going crazy and then Biden going holy moly. But that number is a little juiced and boosted because of Russia. Obviously, that's why it explodes. But the jump off overall from Obama to Trump is pretty significant because he didn't do this in the midst of like, you know, active conflict occurring between two separate foreign entities. Biden has also been god awful on sanctions, though. Make no mistake, I'm not defending Biden's record on this at all. Just so you understand, I think it's dog. Defend it now. Only better chance than the Biden admin. Defend it now. You have to be literally the most delusional donkey on the planet if you think that I would ever in a million years defend the Biden administration's sanctions. There are some who are somewhat understandable, but just recognize that I'm not exactly a fan of Biden either. Libs be defending other liberal failures. Yeah, you might have thought that like I'm a libtard who defends the liberal administrations all the time or something. I was talking about Trump having a chance to stop the war before the Biden admin. Wait, what? I don't think Trump has a chance to stop the war before the Biden administration at all. I don't know what you're talking about. The only thing Trump will do that is different than the Biden administration for sure, if we're being really real, is he'll probably offer infinitely more favorable terms to Russia. And yes, there is a higher likelihood of Russia no longer pummeling Ukraine in the same way. But that same principle exists for Israel as well, even though I don't think you can actually have more favorable terms than Biden has given. Benjamin Netanyahu just simply likes Trump more and will most likely be able to permanently annex the West Bank under the Trump administration. So I guess that's one aspect that could cause a temporary halt in hostilities to make it seem like Donald Trump ended the war and ended the thing, while simultaneously, once again, just like the Trump administration did, greatly accelerate the likelihood of a permanent annexation, permanent occupation worsening for the people of Palestine under the Trump leadership. Now, Kamala would do the same. Considering that is the worst thing you can do to an entire population, there is not really much of a distinction here. But no, I don't think that Kamala Harris would. I don't think that Kamala Harris would be an advocate for the permanent annexation of the West Bank, whereas Trump, I do believe, would be, for the record. Not that it matters in the current calculation, because the current calculation is, yeah, sure, bud. I mean, look no further than prior liberal administrations, guys. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? This is not a defense of like Kamala Harris, even a little bit. My analysis is never going to. My analysis is not going to be different here, okay? I'm always going to be honest with you. I'm even coming to the recognition here that, like, in order to, like, facilitate an immediate ceasefire, Benjamin Netanyahu might play ball with Donald Trump with all of the extra amenities that Trump will offer Benjamin Netanyahu down the line, potentially, over Kamala Harris. Joe Biden is unique in terms of, like, how much of a writer he has been for Israel in terms of former liberal administrations. If you're going to look at this seriously, Barack Obama was technically less favorable to Israel than even other liberal administrations overall. They've still played the same song and dance all the way from Bill Clinton onward in terms of like defending Israel, lying at the behest of Israel, changing the public sentiment in an effort to make it seem like Israel wasn't always the ones ruining negotiations. And it was actually the Palestinians that were ruining the negotiations, blah, blah, blah. But overall, there are certain things that that no liberal nor prior Republican administrations ever did. Recognition for the permanent annexation of Syrian territory in Golan Heights. Trump did that. Okay? Moving the embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing Jerusalem as Israeli territory symbolically. No prior administration did that until Donald Trump. There has not been a single comment from the administration regarding Israel sieging the West Bank except from John Kirby and Matt Miller. Yes, I'm telling you that Joseph Robinette Brandon, San Marino won a competitive game. What? Why are two... what the fuck is a San Marino? What? Your political commentary is so useful and good for the lib left, but lack of a movement from our party is beginning to leave the biggest sour taste in my mouth. Why can't the lib left no longer assemble en masse and fill all of Washington in the streets for what is necessary in our country? I don't know. I mean, they do that, and the media barely covers it. They did that for Palestine, and it didn't work. All right, let's get
a whole different ballgame as far as I was concerned. You know, we made a great China trade deal, maybe better than the USMCA, and I'd never talk about it because what happened with COVID for the whole world, $60 trillion and, you know, deaths, 70 million, 60, nobody even knows how many deaths. And it all came out of Wuhan. So it changed my relationship. But I think I'll have a great relationship with China. I had one before. And they respected us, but they respected us because they no longer thought we were fools. They used to think we were fools because we built China. They would take over $500 billion a year and use it for their military and other things. And we got nothing out of that. We got some cheap product. You can buy 19 pencils instead of 2. Who the hell cares? You can buy 16 dolls for your daughter instead of 2 nice dolls. And we got very little out of that relationship. They got a tremendous military power, and they still have it today. So, but I believe we will have a very good relationship with China and with a lot of other countries that we're not getting along with too well today. And things are going to straighten out. We're going to get them straightened out very quickly. Very important that we get along with the rest of the world. You know, we have things today called nuclear weapons. I rebuilt our whole military, including our nuclear capability. And so I got very familiar with it. And, you know, I say this often because I had an uncle who was the longest serving, I believe the longest serving, I was told that by MIT, but he was there 39, I guess, or 41 years, longest serving professor in the history of MIT, and nuclear was something he knew a lot about. And we used to talk about it. I'd say, Uncle John, there's no way. He was telling me about this incredible power that was being unleashed potentially. And I say, Uncle John, you could never. And you know what? He was very modest because I've seen the destructive capability, and this world is going to have to get along because if that's ever unleashed, we already have too many countries that have at least remnants of it, some of it. But probably 5 countries, if you think. And Kim Jong-un, when I went to the White House after winning in 2016, I sat with President Obama, which is a ritual. And you sit and you talk. And I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, North Korea is the biggest problem. I don't think it's solvable. I said, have you tried calling him or talking to him? And actually, the answer was yes, and he wasn't responded to. But I did, and we were very safe. It started off a little rocky, if you remember. Little Rocket Man, I called him, and he called me things too. He's got a red button on his desk. I said, I have a bigger red button, and my red button works. I said, and then it started getting a little nicer, and then one day I got a call that they'd like to meet, and it was a great thing. We had a great meeting. We had 2 meetings, actually 2 great meetings, summits, and we had no problem with them. Now they have a problem because they're not liking this administration. They don't respect this administration at all. So we have to get along. We have to get along. We can't have World War III. You're going to end up in World War III. Just like you should have never had Russia go in. It would have never happened if a competent person led us.
Peaceful dove. Peace through strength. Still signaling that he is a peaceful guy. A lot of will believe him.
It would have never happened. He led them into it. And I'm not blaming Biden. But you know what? What he was saying was exactly the wrong thing. I said, we're going to have an invasion because of a lot of the rhetoric. It was stupid rhetoric, but it would have never happened. Not only for that reason, oil was down low. You know, oil was almost at $100 a barrel. So Putin is one of the only people. I mean, nothing's easy in life, but Putin at $100 a barrel, war works. At $40 a barrel, it didn't work at all. So we're going to get back to a intelligently run place, a place where other countries aren't using the word nuclear. That word was never talked about because I knew the power of it. And I talked to Putin about it. I talked to President Xi about it. I think we were going to you remember the talk where we were going to reduce nuclear capability substantially. All 3 of us, we're going to start it. We're going to reduce very substantially. And then we had the election, and after the election, they didn't talk about that or anything else, frankly. But we have to be very, very careful, because the destructive capability of nuclear, when people talk about global warming, I say the ocean is going to go down 1/100th of an inch within the next 400 years. That's not our problem. Our problem is nuclear warming, and we better be smart, and we better have smart people at the top that know how to deal, because these people don't know how to deal. He endorsed Kamala, and I didn't know, was I supposed to call him up and say, thank you very much, I appreciate it. But he endorsed Kamala. I have a feeling, I don't know. I don't know exactly what to say about that. I don't know if I'm insulted or he did me a favor. But we have to get along with the world. We can't have, because the destructive capability, you can be the head of the biggest bank wherever the hell Jamie is sitting. You can be the head of the biggest bank in the world, and a couple of nukes and your bank doesn't mean a thing. You gotta get along. This is such an important job. It's a dangerous job too. Very dangerous job. If you look at statistically, being president is very dangerous. That throbbing feeling I have. Oh, that throbbing feeling. No, it's a very dangerous job, and you have to do it right. And if you don't do it right, bad things will happen to the world. Things like you've never seen before. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's popping off.
John Paulson behind me to your right, Mr. President.
First, let me thank you for your presentation today. President Trump, in the last fiscal year, the fiscal deficit under the Biden administration was approximately $2 trillion. Under the policies you've announced, the deficit would come down from items such as increased revenues from tariffs, as well as eliminating the tax incentives for the Green New Deal. These gains would be mitigated by decreases in revenues from policies such as no tax on tips. Overall, what do you estimate will be the impact of the fiscal deficit from your policies?
Well, we just hit record highs at numbers that nobody ever thought possible. You're right, it's over $2 trillion. Nobody thought that was a number that was, I mean, you could go back 4 years, nobody thought a number like that would be possible. It's crazy. It's like, it's just horrible, actually. But yeah, we're...
How'd that happen?
$2 trillion, and I view it as profit and loss to a certain extent. A lot of people say, oh, it's trade. You know, you have many people say trade deficits don't matter. I think they matter a lot. I think they matter a lot. We're going to have tremendous growth. What I'm talking about is all about growth. The tax is relatively minor compared to the growth. We're going to make our money back on growth. We're going to also, I mean, we're going to grow like nobody's ever grown before. I think if this all works out, you're going to have the auto industry come back to America. Right now, China is building 2 auto factories in Mexico, massive auto factories, and they think they're going to make their cars in Mexico and send them back into the United States with no tax. It's not going to happen. Under this administration, it's going to happen. And they wanted to do that.
Literally, both of the admins have the exact same opinion on tariffs on Chinese-made automobiles. Like, literally, both. Straight up. China consents, Mexico consents. Is there someone you forgot to ask? No, I mean, you will, if I get a BYD, will you sign it? Yes. You will never get the Yangwang, and neither will I. And I want it really bad. I want the Yangwang U9 supercar, but I will not be able to get it because of both Joseph Robinette Brandon and Donald Trump. What is this?
During my administration, I said, if you do it, we're going to put a 200% tariff on every car, and you'll never be able to see it. There will never be one car coming across our border. And if I would have let them do it, we would have had these 2 factories. Well, now they're building massive factories, more than 2, and they're going to Detroit. And the head of the union, the United Auto Workers in Detroit, has done a terrible, terrible job, just a terrible job. But we're going to bring tremendous growth back. And remember, we're also taking in a certain percentage. I won't name the percentage today, but it'll be a certain tariff percentage, which will be higher than people had heard in the past. And we will be bringing in billions and billions of dollars, which will directly reduce our deficits. Okay? Thank you very much. Good job you've done, by the way. Very good.
Thank you. And the final question, Resma, is to you.
Thank you. President Trump, you talked about how the increase in the price of food, gas, and rent is hurting families. But the real cost that's breaking families' backs and preventing women from participating in the workforce is childcare. Childcare is now more expensive than rent for working families and is costing the economy more than $122 billion a year, making it one of the most urgent economic issues that is facing our country. In fact, the cost of childcare is outpacing the cost of inflation, with the majority of American families of young children spending more than 20% of their income on childcare. One thing that Democrats and Republicans have in common is that both parties talk a lot about what they're going to do to address the childcare crisis, but neither party has delivered meaningful change. If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing?
Why does no one ever ask who pays the tariffs? The answer is consumers, and that's not a fun conversation to have for any administration, whether it be the Biden administration or whether it be the Trump administration. A U.S. Department of Agriculture study found the retaliatory tariffs from China during the tariffs was reduced U.S. agricultural exports by $27 billion from mid-2018 when the tariffs were imposed at the end of 2019. Trump farmers, yeah. You try to make up for it with additional subsidies. And yes, this is a room full of multimillionaires and billionaires.
Legislation to make childcare affordable. And what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. You know, I was we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers.
Bro, people always talk about how great Donald Trump is at like contested interviews, but like, dude, he never answers the question. Like, I've never heard this man. That was the most direct question you could have asked. What are the legislative items that you seek to push for and pass if you become president in terms of dealing with skyrocketing childcare costs? And he just literally did not even talk about it at all, bro. He just straight up was like, well, tariffs, China, we're going to deal with China. They're going to love the tariffs. He never does he never responds ever. It's so frustrating. And nobody holds him to account, dude. This is a puppet show, buddy. Presidents are not elected to people to protect people's interests. Yes, I know that better than anybody else, okay? I know that as well as I know that there's a 3-minute ad break coming for you right now. And if you want to change that reality for yourself, you need to subscribe for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime. He just like hyper focuses on one thing. He just hyper focuses on one thing and just like stays on it. Like on the debate, it was immigrants. They'd be like, yo, Mr. President, how will you deal with the war in Ukraine? Immigrants are raping our children. They're doing it. They've 10 million Americans last week. I'm going to ship the immigrants to Ukraine. It's like, what the? How are you going to fix the housing crisis? Immigrants are stealing our homes. We're going to ship the immigrants out. We're going to do mass deportation.
Numbers are so much bigger than talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country. Because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is.
It's so funny because he's a room reader and he knows what room he's in. He's like, he basically told her to shut up. I'm in the Economic Club of New York. Ain't nobody give a fuck about childcare in here. Shut your dumb ass up. It's time to talk about tariffs against China again. He like literally, he's just like, I'm not going to answer that question. What are you, stupid? Nobody here has an issue with what you're talking about. Yeah, talk to me again when I'm in Ohio or something, okay? These people don't want to hear about me spending dollars on the working poor.
That I just told you about. We're going to be getting in trillions of dollars And as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people. But we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So we'll take care of it. Thank you. Very good question. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trump. It's great that you accepted our invitation to be with us today. Thank you, Raj, Sander, John, and Reshma, for your questions. The president is now going to be leaving the building, and so we want to all stay seated while he and his team leave. But as he leaves, let's all say thank you one more time for him accepting our invitation to be here today.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Thank you. It's a great honor.
That's a gift, by the way. Childcare is not that expensive. What a wonderful gift. I wonder if the Democrats will use it. Please. I mean, this is what I always say. Like, I watch the Democratic Party and the way they move, and I talk about how bad they are. And then all it takes is for me to see like 3.5 seconds of Donald Trump talking to immediately remind every single person that is in the chat that is constantly like, oh, you say Kamala Harris is going to win. Like, how do you say that? This is why. These guys are they are so far up their own assholes, okay? I don't think personally that there are enough like conspiratorial weirdos out there that will vote for Donald Trump, even though he's president for the past 4 years, or not for the past 4 years. Well, he was too. He was still my president. But I don't think there is enough like non-voters he can activate with the crank vote that will come out in droves in swing states and vote for him because of the RFK Tulsi Gabbard, crank vote, the crank allegiance. When he's saying like this, and a lot of normal voters will go, what the do you mean you don't think childcare is expensive? Let's see what the better answer is. Let's see what the better answer is.
The cost of daycare. Hayden, obviously a working family, and it's very hard for working families to get by. How will we lower the cost of daycare?
Such an important question, Charlie. And I think one of the things that we can do is make it easier.
Remember, this is the well-read guy who's like buttoned up. He's supposed to like fix the silly arguments that Trump makes. Let's hear how he answered
for family models to choose, or for families to choose whatever model they want, right? So one of the ways that you might be able to relieve a little bit of pressure on people who are paying so much for daycare is make it so that maybe like grandma or grandpa wants to help out a little bit more, or maybe there's an aunt or uncle that wants to help out a little bit more. If that happens, you relieve some of the pressure on all the resources that we're spending in daycare. Now, you talk about just daycare. Let's say you don't have somebody who can provide that extra set of hands. What we've got to do is actually empower people to get trained in this that they need for the 21st century. We've got a lot of people who love kids, who would love to take care of kids, but they can't, either because they don't have access to the education that they need, or maybe more importantly, because the state government says you're not allowed to take care of children.
Oh my God. He said we need to deregulate childcare so that we can get sex offenders to be in charge of childcare. Okay, there's a lot of these people that are being held back by the nanny state that want to take care of your children, but they can't because the nanny state tells them no. Obviously, he's not talking about sex offenders there. I'm joking, but am I joking really? Because that's one of the regulatory mechanisms in action here. Maybe he'll deregulate that too. Folks, you know what I want to do? You know the random adults that you leave your child with for 12 hours out of the day when you're at work slaving away? I want to make sure that those guys have less regulation. I want to make sure that the entry level for a job like that, a task that requires an unimaginable amount of confidence from the family, I want to make sure that more people can join that job. Because right now, first I think, just ask your grandma to take care of the kid. And if you can't, if your grandma's dead, well, issue, we can get the local pedophile to do it. I love the Republican Party, man. They're so fire. What do you mean? This guy just wanted a 16-year-old. Is that even an issue? Now he can take care of your child, you know?
Unless you have some ridiculous certification that has nothing to do with taking care of kids. So empower people to get this they need. Don't force every early child care specialist to go and get a 6-year college degree where they've got a whole lot of debt and Americans are much poorer because they're paying out the wazoo for daycare. Empower working families, empower people who want to do these things for a living, and that's what we got to do. All right,
That's awesome. What a solution, dude. Deregulating the childcare industry will certainly have no unforeseeable consequences. That's cool. So JD Vance wants pedophiles to take care of your children when you're at work, slaving away. Donald Trump says childcare is not that expensive anyway. Who gives a... And then you say, Hasan, how could you be confident that the Kamala Harris campaign is going to actually win? Literally, do you hear what they are saying? Okay? And it's not necessarily like the out-of-touch idiocy that you hear from this campaign. And it's more so what that out-of-touch idiocy represents. If this is the forward thinkers in your party, then it shows me that your instincts are bunk, okay? Just like I say the exact same. You are an expert at twisting their words. I'm an expert at twisting their words. Donald Trump literally said, childcare is nothing in comparison to the tariffs and the money we're going to make from the tariffs. That's number one. Number two, this guy literally did say, get grandma to take care of the kid. And if grandma's not around, then, you know, we need to deregulate childcare. He said those words. What do you hear when he says those words? What's the difference between deregulating the border, though? Just like most migrants coming across the border are not rapists, most people who want to work in childcare are not pedos. I know, dumbass. I'm exaggerating in terms of the pedophile argument. Okay? I even admitted that I'm obviously being hyperbolic. I'm saying deregulating an industry that requires understandable certifications because they are tasked with an incredible job taking care of another person's children for extended periods of time should have some certifications. What the are you guys saying? How do you guys not hear that and go, oh my God, that sounds like an insane thing to say? If you can't understand it for childcare because you yourself are probably a child or have not considered this at all, like what kind of confidence is required to leave your children with a goddamn adult? If you can't imagine that, then you should probably, I don't know, apply that exact same ideological principle of deregulation to something that you do know about. Maybe your workplace, for example. Maybe you can understand it that way. It's a really cool way to understand things that you cannot personally comprehend.
Interview of Joe Biden, it was like the softest interview I've ever seen. It was softer than the CNN interview of Kamala. So, but they're very nasty. And I think a lot of people are going to be watching to see how nasty they are, how unfair they are. I agreed to do it because they wouldn't do any other network. The other thing is her best friend is the head of the network. Her husband's best friend is married to the head of the network. And they're going to get the questions. I've already heard they're going to get the questions in advance. They even have Donna Brazile. Remember Donna Brazile? She gave Donna Brazile. She's the real beauty. Donna Brazile. She gave Hillary Clinton the questions. You remember that? And she works for ABC, and she's at the round table talking about the debate. So we're going to watch very closely. But you're not allowed to do it. We even have a clause in the contract. You can't give them the questions, but I'm not sure it's going to help her that much, though. I think you might give her the questions and give her the answers with the questions. I'm not sure it's going to help her.
I don't know. All right, now, so unlike Kamala Harris, our time is actually up. However, we're going to let Dave McCormick ask the first question, and we're going to air that not tonight, but tomorrow night.
He always does this, you know.
I do.
Our time's up, but you know what? Let's make two.
Fighting inflation is one of our